There are some movies that never fade. They burn bright in memory, echoing through generations like a heartbeat. And for anyone who grew up in the 1980 seconds, The Last Dragon wasn't just a movie, it was an experience. It was martial arts, music, and pure Motown magic all wrapped into one glowing ball of energy. But behind the laughs, the kicks, and the unforgettable glow of Bruce Leroy, there was a story most people never knew, one of brilliance, heartbreak, and loss. Because the people who brought The Last Dragon to life, from the fearless Sho'nuff to the talented Leo O'Brien to the radiant Vanity, each faced battles far beyond the silver screen. When Berry Gordy, the genius behind Motown, decided to merge music and movies, he wanted to capture something that spoke to a younger generation. He wanted to mix rhythm with power, soul with martial arts, to show the world a new kind of hero. And it worked. The Last Dragon became a cult classic, inspiring black cinema, hip-hop, and pop culture for decades. But what happened after the glow faded? What became of the man behind the menacing sunglasses of Sho'nuff? And what tragic fate met the young star who once charmed the world with his smile? This is the untold story, the rise, the struggle, and the heartbreaking downfall of The Last Dragon's most unforgettable faces. When Berry Gordy, the visionary mind behind Motown Records, set out to make The Last Dragon in 1985, his goal wasn't just to create a martial arts movie. He wanted to craft a cultural moment. Gordy had already conquered the world of music, shaping legends like Diana Ross, the Jackson 5, and Marvin Gaye. Now, he saw film as the next frontier, a way to blend rhythm, fashion, and the fighting spirit of a new generation. He envisioned a story that could inspire young audiences, particularly black youth, to see themselves as heroes on the big screen. And in doing so, he created something no one had ever seen before, a fusion of Bruce Lee's discipline with Motown soul. When it came to casting, Gordy wanted authenticity, faces that felt real, energetic, and magnetic. For his leading man, he found Taimak, a fresh-faced martial artist with quiet confidence and a humble spirit. But the search for his leading lady, the dazzling Laura Charles, was something else entirely. According to Taimak, Gordy asked him one simple question. If your character was going to fall in love, who would you want that woman to be? Without hesitation, Taimak said, Vanity. And just like that, Gordy made it happen. Vanity, once the glamorous protege of Prince, stepped into the role with charisma and charm. Her character embodied the perfect blend of strength and vulnerability, radiance and mystery. The chemistry between Taimak and Vanity lit up the screen, making their scenes together iconic even decades later. But every great hero needs a rival, and that's where Julius Carry came in, the man who would become Sho'nuff, the Shogun of Harlem. Standing tall at 6'5", Julius brought both menace and humor to the role. Off-screen, he wasn't a trained fighter, but his acting was so magnetic that audiences believed every punch, every growl, every outrageous move. Taimak later revealed that Julius stayed in character the entire time, walking around the set in full costume, sunglasses on, booming voice echoing down the halls. He wanted to live as Sho'nuff, to make the rivalry feel real. And it worked. His performance became legendary, earning him cult status as one of the most unforgettable villains in 80-second cinema. Then came Leo O'Brien, a young actor from Harlem with deep ties to hip-hop. His older brother was Guy O'Brien, better known as Master G from the Sugar Hill Gang, one of the pioneers of rap music. Growing up surrounded by rhythm and rhymes, Leo had talent in his blood. He started out in commercials and local TV, but when he auditioned for The Last Dragon, he beat out over 2,000 other hopefuls to land the role of Richie Green, Bruce Leroy's wisecracking kid brother. His bright smile, quick humor, and street-smart energy made Richie an instant fan favorite. On set, Leo bonded with Gordy, who saw potential in him beyond acting. Gordy treated Leo like family, encouraging him to pursue music and even inviting him to stay at his home for a while after filming. Together, this cast, from the rising stars to the veterans, brought Gordy's vision to life. The Last Dragon wasn't just a movie. It was a celebration of black excellence, creativity, and self-empowerment. It blended karate with comedy, Motown grooves with pop culture, and gave the world something it had never seen before, a hero who could fight with his fists but win with his heart. And yet, behind the fame and the flash, darkness waited for many of them, a fate that would haunt the cast long after the glow of the dragon faded. Before The Last Dragon, Julius Carry was a man of many faces, a classically trained actor, a scholar, and a dreamer from Chicago who never imagined he'd one day become one of the most unforgettable villains in movie history. Born on the 12th of March 1952, Julius was drawn to the stage early. While most kids were playing ball or hanging on the block, Julius was acting in school plays. His deep voice, towering presence, and effortless charisma made him impossible to ignore. In high school, he joined a theater group called the Spartan Players, where he performed everything from Hamlet to West Side Story. It wasn't long before everyone knew Julius was meant to perform. After graduation, his family decided to move him away from the streets of Chicago to Los Angeles, hoping he'd avoid the trouble that surrounded their neighborhood. There, Julius doubled down on his dream. He studied film and television production, earning his bachelor's degree, and then pushed further, getting a master's in communication arts. He wasn't just an actor. He was a craftsman, a thinker, a man who understood storytelling on every level. In 1979, Julius made his film debut in Disco Godfather, a small role that showed flashes of the raw power he had inside. But his true breakthrough came when Berry Gordy and director Michael Schultz were looking for someone to bring their outrageous villain, Sho'nuff, to life in The Last Dragon. On paper, Sho'nuff, the Shogun of Harlem, was larger than life. A kung fu master dressed in wild samurai, inspired outfits, dark shades, and a wild mane of hair, rolling through Harlem with a crew of loyal goons. It was ridiculous. It was bold. It was unforgettable. And Julius Carry made it real. Even though he wasn't a trained martial artist, he approached the role like a method actor. He stayed in character on set, even when the cameras weren't rolling. Castmates said he would strut around, yell, "Who's the master?" in that booming voice, and even rip things off the walls just to keep the energy alive. It wasn't arrogance, it was dedication. Julius wanted the tension between Sho'nuff and Bruce Leroy, played by Taimak, to feel authentic, raw, and electric. And it worked. Every time Julius appeared on screen, the audience felt his presence before he even spoke. The red glow around him at the film's climax became symbolic not just of his character's power, but of the fire that Julius brought to every role he touched. Sho'nuff wasn't just a villain. He was style, comedy, and chaos wrapped in confidence. He became an icon of black cinema, a cult legend quoted for decades after. After The Last Dragon, Julius Carry's career only grew. He became a familiar face on TV, appearing in hit shows like The Jeffersons, 227, The A-Team, and Family Matters. Fans from the 90 Seconds will always remember him as Lord Bowler, the tough but lovable bounty hunter alongside Bruce Campbell in The Adventures of Briscoe County, Jr. Behind the fame, Julius was known for his kindness, professionalism, and love for the craft. He mentored young actors, often reminding them that Hollywood fame was fleeting but good work lasts forever. Tragically, in 2008, Julius Carry passed away after battling pancreatic cancer. He was only 56 years old. When word spread of his death, tributes poured in from all corners of the entertainment world. To this day, fans still quote his famous line, "Kiss my Converse," as a reminder of the fearless energy he brought to the screen. Julius Carry may have played the Shogun of Harlem, but in truth, he was the master of character, of presence, of soul. And his glow? It never faded. Before he ever stepped in front of a camera, Leo O'Brien already had rhythm running through his veins. Born on the 12th of November 1970, in Harlem, New York, Leo grew up surrounded by the heartbeat of a cultural revolution. His older brother, Guy O'Brien, better known as Master Guy of the Sugar Hill Gang, helped define hip-hop with Rapper's Delight, the first mainstream rap hit. For a young kid in Harlem, there was no better classroom than that. Leo absorbed everything, the beats echoing from block parties, the breakdancers spinning on cardboard, the MCs battling for respect. But while his brother ruled the stage, Leo dreamed of the screen. By the time he was 10, his charm and confidence landed him small commercial roles, most famously in an Underoos TV spot and a 20/20 segment titled Rappin' to the Beat. It was the first nationally televised news story about hip-hop, and there was Leo, a kid from Harlem, rapping on a car hood, representing a movement that was still fighting for recognition. Hollywood took notice. After several auditions, Leo won the role that would define him, Richie Green, the wisecracking little brother of Bruce Leroy in The Last Dragon. Out of over 2,500 hopefuls, this 3-year-old from Harlem stole the part with his natural swagger and infectious smile. On set, Berry Gordy, the legendary founder of Motown, took a liking to Leo, treating him like a son. The Last Dragon wasn't just a film, it was a cultural explosion. For the first time, black heroes were doing kung fu, saving the day, and carrying the energy of Motown music behind them. And Leo O'Brien, with his quick wit and fearless delivery, gave the film its humor and heart. He held his own next to grown men, stealing scenes with ease. The world saw him as a star in the making. After the movie's success, Leo stayed close to Gordy and his circle, spending time at Motown and pitching ideas. His dream wasn't just to act, he wanted to make music, to bring rap to Motown's doorstep. He even handed Gordy an early script he wrote, a comedy about two high school kids switching lives years later. That same idea resurfaced as Class Act starring Kid and Play. But Hollywood is a brutal place for young black actors. After a cameo in New Jack City, thanks to his friend Mario Van Peebles, Leo's phone stopped ringing. The momentum faded. He drifted away from film and fell into the chaos that fame often leaves behind. By his 20s, Leo was fighting demons. Arrests for assault, robbery, and drugs began to stain his record. The boy who once stood next to Motown's king now stood in courtrooms, trying to rebuild his life. After serving nearly 8 years behind bars, he returned home determined to start over. He opened a convenience store in Harlem, launched a small music studio, and began mentoring local youth. But Harlem can be unforgiving. In September 2011, a heated argument with a friend turned violent. Leo was shot 3 times, twice in the stomach and once in the arm. He miraculously survived. "I'm a fast healer," he said in an interview. "If it had been anyone else, they'd be gone." Yet, the wounds never truly healed. A year later, on the 10th of October 2012, Leo O'Brien died in his sleep at age 41. His nephew later revealed that doctors hadn't stitched him properly after the shooting. His internal injuries never recovered. He wasn't a superstar. But Leo O'Brien was something rarer, a spark of a generation that blended hip-hop and cinema. A reminder that even the smallest roles can leave the loudest echoes. In Harlem, people still talk about him, the kid who brought rhythm, laughter, and soul to The Last Dragon. He was supposed to grow up to be the next big thing. Instead, he became a legend whispered in Harlem's heartbeat. When The Last Dragon hit theaters in 1985, no one could have predicted that this wild fusion of kung fu, soul music, and pure Motown flair would become one of the most beloved cult classics of all time. It wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural moment. For the first time, black audiences saw a film that celebrated them not as sidekicks or stereotypes, but as heroes, dreamers, and warriors. Berry Gordy, the legendary founder of Motown, had a vision: to create a film that would connect music, fashion, and empowerment into one cinematic statement. He wanted young audiences to see that black creativity could shine across every medium from the soundtrack to the screen. With a mix of martial arts, mysticism, and street swagger, The Last Dragon did exactly that. The movie's protagonist, Leroy Green, a soft-spoken martial artist searching for the glow, represented something radical in the 1,980 seconds. A black man guided by peace, discipline, and self-respect, not violence. His rival, Sho'nuff, the self-proclaimed Shogun of Harlem, became one of the most iconic villains in pop culture, flamboyant, fierce, and unforgettable. Played by Julius Carry, his booming voice and outrageous style gave the film its edge. And then there was Vanity, radiant, fearless, and magnetic as the love interest, Laura Charles, the heart that balanced all the chaos. And through it all, young Leo O'Brien as Richie Green brought the film's humor and soul. He represented the voice of a generation, a kid from the streets who believed his brother could be a hero. Together, the cast created something bigger than themselves, a world where being black meant being brilliant, powerful, and stylish. Musically, the film was pure Motown magic. With songs like DeBarge's Rhythm of the Night, the soundtrack became an anthem for the era, fusing pop, soul, and funk into a sound that defined the mid-80 seconds. It wasn't just background music. It was the heartbeat of the story. But what truly made The Last Dragon timeless was how it spoke to identity. It arrived at a time when hip-hop was still underground, when fashion and film were separate lanes, and when Hollywood rarely gave space to black-led adventure films. Gordy's vision kicked the door open. The movie inspired the early hip-hop scene, from the style, those red leather outfits and shades, to the confidence that echoed in lyrics years later. Artists like Busta Rhymes, Wu-Tang Clan, and even Kanye West have referenced Sho'nuff and the glow in their music, proof that the film's energy never faded. For many young black kids growing up in the 80s, The Last Dragon was more than entertainment, it was affirmation. It said you could be a dreamer and a fighter, spiritual and stylish, soft-spoken yet strong. It said that heroes didn't have to come from somewhere else, they could come from Harlem. Even decades later, the glow still burns. Screenings of the film draw packed theaters. Fans recite lines word for word, and new generations discover it on streaming platforms. Its message to find your inner light even when the world doubts you remains as powerful today as it was in 1985. Tragically, many of the film's stars, Vanity, Julius Carry, and Leo O'Brien, left the world far too soon. But their spirit, their art, and their glow continue to inspire, because The Last Dragon wasn't just about kung fu or music, it was about transformation. It was about finding your light in the dark. And that glow, it still shines. There are stories that fade with time, and then there are those that burn forever, glowing softly in the hearts of those who remember. The Last Dragon is one of those stories. It was never just a movie about kung fu or Motown or Harlem. It was a celebration of rhythm, of soul, of the belief that greatness lives within us all. Berry Gordy's dream gave us heroes who looked like us, sounded like us, and fought not just with fists, but with faith. Leroy Green taught us that power doesn't come from rage, it comes from peace. Vanity's Laura Charles reminded us that beauty can be strength, that love can heal. Julius Carry's Sho'nuff showed that even the villain can become legend, larger than life, immortal in swagger and style. And Leo O'Brien, that bright young spark of Harlem, embodied youth, hope, and the promise of tomorrow. Their stories didn't end when the cameras stopped rolling. In life, they faced struggles, demons, and heartbreaks far greater than any movie villain. But their light, their glow remains. Vanity found redemption in faith before her passing. Julius Carry left a legacy of laughter and inspiration on and off screen. Leo O'Brien, though gone too soon, lives forever through every fan who still smiles when Richie cheers, "Go, Leroy." It's strange how film and fate intertwine, how one story, one cast, can capture an era's spirit so perfectly. The Last Dragon continues to inspire dreamers, musicians, and fighters who search for their own glow in a world that often feels dark. Because that's the real secret. The glow isn't something you find, it's something you become, and as long as we remember them, their light will never die. Rest in power, Vanity. Rest in power, Julius Carry. Rest in power, Leo O'Brien. The glow lives on.